So thanks again for everybody for showing up tonight. And here we're going to have an opportunity to show off our challenge from last month. So looks like Mike's going to start us out, and we'll just keep everybody rolling through.
Somebody's got to go first. Okay. This isn't hollow, but I tell you, I didn't use my jig. Okay. I used a ring. Thanks, Effie. I used a ring, and I started off with one from a small mason jar and tried different sizes of those, and those worked for a while, but then I made a size that I liked and it fit real well on here. This really, Kevin's method of using this ring really works well. But to get down to it, you know, cutting the corners off and corners of corners made it really simple. And then the secret is 3 axes. You know, you got this way, 90 degrees this way, and then 90 degrees this way. And gosh, when I got to the 3rd axis, I hardly had to do any sanding or anything to it, but maybe I just got lucky. But there's a piece of walnut just out of the backyard, or I found it somewhere, but I wanted to get that process down first, and then I was going to make one hollowed out and nice and round, but didn't get around to it. So this is it. Anyway, thanks. Next.
Well, I got one round, and it is hollow. And I used Kevin's idea of how in the world to do it, and burn up a lot of sandpaper with holes in the middle. And that was working fine until the wire came off on my lace, so I didn't get the final little bit out. But it was an interesting thing. Although I did create one Death Star, because I made the inside almost, and when I started sanding, I started producing a hole through it. And then a couple of them kept on going down, and now I have Easter eggs to fill.
This was my first attempt at doing a sphere. I've done not a lot of turning, but I've never done a sphere completely. And so I used basically Kevin's method, and turned out to be a lot easier than I thought it would be. This was my first attempt, and I'm pretty happy with it. Still a work in progress. It's got some sanding that needs to be done on it yet, but it's pretty spherical, and I was proud of as a first attempt that came out. This is a piece of solid walnut, and it was you learn a lot about what not to do when you do something like this, but I was pretty happy with it.
Okay, I had to make something segmented. It's got 225 pieces. The biggest thing is the ends I had to do with the 4 pieces, because they won't move as much as if I tried to segment it and go right down to the point. So, and this one is my dizzy ball. There's a bunch. Because the way you do it, you start with a center board, and then each layer you add the same layer color and thickness on each side, and you go out. So I got out to, there's 1/8" pieces, there's veneers, there's walnut, there's maple, there's red veneer, white veneer, cherry red veneer, yellow veneer. And it was just this one. I tried to do Kevin's thing, but I forgot. The cylinder was 3 3/8, and I did my calculations on 3 3/4. So that didn't work out real well, but I wasn't about to throw it away. All the work I had in it already. That's it. I'm going to keep going.
I have 2. I did a demo for the Independence Woodturners last month, and I demoed Streptohedrons and did a simple one there, but this one is a more complex Streptohedron. So basically it's turned on the lathe like this. First of all, it's two pieces and it's glued together by a single piece of newspaper and held together, and then it's turned just like this on the lathe, and then it's broke open, and then you have to hollow it out. And I used a resin circle there. But what's neat about it is when it's rotated 90 degrees, it does change and gives it a completely different form. It kind of looks more like a gyroscope, I would say. But that's that one. And then you when I first started, that's what I thought. But what I have since learned is after I split it apart and I started doing the hollowing out on the inside, I realized that I could actually put this back on the lathe. And I have a soft jaw chuck that I clamped here, and then you just have your cone, your one way, and it'll hold it here. And that allowed me to then go back and try to clean up just a little bit more to give it a little bit more of a spherical. And I mean, you can really tell when you open it up after you split it open how close you are. And so I've got another one that I'm trying to do as well. This one, I just decided to go with the camouflage threads. And so the camouflage threads are just 4 colors. I think I did antique bronze, emerald green, yellow, and gold. So these are 16-inch threads.
I had done some solid spheres before, so I decided I was going to try a spherical box. Which obviously didn't turn out too well. I think I had been planning to have a little more overlap between the two halves and went with a much smaller one, which was fortunate because Thursday night when I turned it, we couldn't get the two halves apart. Fortunately, this afternoon they are coming apart, and it's more spherical on the inside than it is on the outside. And then this piece was something I'd been trying a while back, where I got the hollowing part and the half sphere part. What that actually is an easel for enamel painting. You attach your piece with glue stick because you have to pull it off after each layer to fire it, and then put it back on for the next layer of painting.
So there are three spheres here. Which I learned from Kevin's class several years ago. And he taught us how to make a sphere, and we made some alteration, and Chris was here too. And I made this hollowed walnut one, and this is it looks like it's two separate, but it's the solid. People try to open it, but it can't. And this one, it was a cedar, and this was made by Kevin. And what's beautiful about cedar is those, typically there are those rings that you can obviously see on the wood, but you can also see that the red in the cedar penetrate like a star, regardless to the rings, and that's the beauty of the cedar. It's amazing how this is like a star penetrating those rings. That's it.
So I'm not a great turner by any stretch, but I always want to come and participate and do whatever you guys are doing. So I made 2 spheres, and then I never touched color or anything like that. And I was at the store at Woodcraft and looking at the colors, looking at the finishes, and Ed came on and he helped me. He was there, and so he was kind of talking me through some stuff. My idea was to get some colors and start using them. I don't know if you guys have seen Cindy Drozda, and she only works with burl, and she does the color, and the burl takes it on differently, and it's really beautiful stuff. So it was interesting just to see how it absorbs on the end grain versus the face grain. And then as soon as I did them blue and yellow, I couldn't not see it. So they had to be Zelensky's.
Love the spheres. So this one, I just started out with the closest that I could come to with a sphere and took it to the disc grinder and just created facets by pushing it up against the disc grinder and going around until I didn't see any of the original sphere left. And then I went through the facets and painted them different dye colors. And then after that dried, I polished it. And the last thing I did was take a Sharpie and just follow the ridge that was created at all of those facets. And it kind of created a stained glass look that was, I thought that was kind of fun. This was a piece of holly that I was able to turn into a pretty good sphere. When I look at it, I do see some flat spots to it. It wasn't perfect. So I kept trying and kept trying and kept trying and didn't give it up. Kept trying. And then I could see the problems. So I ended up, this one is solid surface material, and it's pretty hard to get apart, but it's actually so that was my fun with spheres. You see? Yeah, I'm going to do glass eyes in later next life. A Rubik sphere. Okay. It only has one axis.
I had some African blackwood, and I've been making chess pieces out of it. And so this was a little shorter than it was supposed to be. And I had some difficulty cutting the thread, so much difficulty that I used glue instead. And yeah, and to prove that it's actually hollow, I put something in it, that's all.
No, I'm sorry. Challenges on the line. Sorry.
Okay, that one is my sphere. I didn't hollow it. It's about 2.5 inches in diameter. And then I just placed it in the chuck to take advantage of the crack in the wood. And I finished it with walnut oil and then turned a stand for it to sit on. Looks kind of sad compared to what everybody else has done.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Thank God we got somebody.
Try it again, Ann. We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
No. No.
Okay, well, it's not a big deal. That's fine. It's just a live oak sphere, about 2.5 inches in diameter.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Okay, this is my sphere and it's about 2.5 inches in diameter. I turned it out of live oak. It is not hollowed. And when I put it in the chuck, I just placed it to take advantage of the crack. And I finished it with walnut oil and I turned the stand for it to sit on.
Nice job, Ann.
Thank you.
Good.
We get a ticket for Ann too.
We got one pulled. Okay.
Is that the last
Do we
challenge?
have any more challenges online?
Challenges on.
Okay.
All right, this is a ball that Anthony helped me turn. It was my first, kind of my second ball attempt. It was not a good attempt, so I think it's in the trash now. So, don't know if I'll turn another one, but yeah, it may be a while. Another thing I'd like to say is anyone, we have a member in our group that has a artwork that is in a museum that I guess gets over several million people a year that visit. Everybody aware of that? Member Don Frank, he has many pieces at the Bass Pro Museum down in Springfield. There's a whole room dedicated to many pieces. He has world record pieces in this museum. So if you've never been there, I encourage you to visit the Bass Pro Shop in Springfield.
The pieces that Mark's talking about are taxidermy pieces. Don is a professional taxidermist. Very cool.
Who's the next person?
Googly eyed fish. Now,
Another online. Phil Sykes.
try this again.
Phil Sykes.
Can't do that. That was a mistake. So this is Phil's.
This is Phil's, but I guess Phil's not online.
Okay. Okay.
So, and he also put these other ones in. So that's Phil's. Yep.
All right. Is that good?
That's good.
Online. All right. Everybody's got pictures.
That's it. Phil Sykes was he did both the cup jokes and
Number is
but we have the short.
162. 162. Happy? Happy, you are the winner of a coupon to Craft Supply. Thank you for your participation. All right. to end us up tonight, looks like we've got some just some show and tell here that look very interesting. So if you got a show and tell piece, go on over there and take your turns coming on up.
Okay, so I spent the last week turning with my dad in Chicago, and we were working on human forms. He actually teaches this. So this is my first one, and clearly lots of learning involved in there. And Dad knows what he's doing, and I'm just in there messing around. And I told him his design needed some knees to be more accurate. And of course, it didn't need any knees. It looks much better without knees. But it's basically spindle stuff on, 3 different axes. He's got all kinds of designs. He does a 2-axis one, a 5-axis one, and there's a male version and a female version. But this was new and different for me, kind of just outside of my comfort zone. So I was happy with them, even with knees and stubby.
Okay, this is a walnut bowl that I made. There was a email that went out last year about a 200-year-old walnut tree that if anybody wanted any of the wood to bring their chainsaws, so have chainsaw will travel. And I cut, this is one of the first pieces out of the log. It's advertised 200 years old. And so if you think about 200 years ago, that's when Missouri became a state, 1821. So a lot of history in that tree. So I turned this and I had a lot of fun doing it. The bark on it stayed really nice. I didn't have to do anything to fortify it. That's all original. So there it is.
This is something I've been interested in for quite a while. The guy from Walnut Log in St. Louis was demonstrating it when there used to be a wood show. This is, he calls them the Indigo blue bowls. And you use the Sorby spiraling tools, different heads and stuff like that. And then you blow on an alkaline dye. And then after everything's there, then you rub in hamster sheen white, in this case, to fill in all the markings and everything like that. And then you buff that. And then after you get through with that, then you finally put on a lacquer finish. But I always like to leave the bowls on the inside so it still looks like they're wood.
This is a piece of beef wood that Larry Dice gave me. I've never turned it before. It's quite hard. It's Australian. It's a little bit brittle, but not very bad. It's nothing like Ipe, and it's a nice wood. And I don't know how many of you bought some. They were selling it at AAW show in Kansas City, and it was cheap. It'd be interesting to get some more of it, I think. This is the box I made yesterday during the class. This is the little Eskimo box, or no, Coolie box, made out of mulberry. And so I just bring it to show. I think I got shorter. This is an interesting thing. This is, I don't know if it's maple or pear, but this is something I turned 15 years ago. I turned, I don't know, probably a dozen of them. I was making little urns, and this one warped so badly. I thought it was junk. It was never going to be able to put it back on the lathe. It was turned green, and so it warped a bunch. And so I've had it sitting somewhere for a long, long time. What I finally did was just kind of ignored the tenon and use the tailstock to put the center, to hold the center, and put it in the chuck however it would. And it was like if you had put it straight in the chuck, it would have missed this entirely. It wouldn't have been in the, you couldn't touch that hole again. But when you center it up on the lathe and you grab it however you can, it works pretty well. And it's interesting to get something out of what's essentially yard waste. This is the same. This was a piece of Osage orange that I had kind of put away because it has this great big knot in it. And I had actually repaired it. It looked like it had some super glue or something in it. And it worked out. It's a nice shape, I think, for it doesn't cost you anything. That's all.
Well, with the start of the new year, trying to eat healthier and all that, I took a look at the salad bowls that I'd turned years ago, you know, in the kitchen, and some of them were kind of looking kind of not so good. And so I decided we needed some new bowls. And so anyway, I turned like 4 of them. Gosh, elm, maple, walnut, and this is a piece of pecan that I got from Ann Molina. And it was funny because it was just a half a log, and I'm looking at it and the bark, it's like, what is that? Oh, that's a nail, a great big old nail in the thing. And that's the one that's right here. And you can see light through it. It goes anyway. Then I found 2 more, and they're right here. And so I filled them, but this first one kept bubbling up with the CA I put in it and everything. So about 3 times and it takes a while for the this is a big nail, for the CA to cure in there and become solid. But anyway, I did. But I thought this was a pretty piece of pecan that came out pretty nice. I like with the undercut rim so that, you know, put salad in here and stuff and dressing on it, and you can actually toss it, and it comes back in here instead of going all over the floor. So anyway, it was fun, and I wish I had some more of this because this really is wonderful wood to turn. It's really, really hard. So yeah. Yeah, there is. Yeah. And you just have to work at it. But with this undercut rim, if you throw it up like this, and then you can catch it. But you don't go like this, because then it's all over. Anyway, it's a good bowl for that.
I'm not picky. Yeah, it'll all, as long as we don't tilt, as long as we don't tilt the table over or anything else like that. I've got a wood turning course that I teach at a public high school, and I start out with some basics. And one of the projects that everybody seems to want to have is a lamp. I mean, just for some reason, between the lamps and the other one is cutting boards. I've made more cutting boards than I even want to even think about. And there's in the early days on the freshman projects that I had, we used to make clipboards. The clipboards never turned out to be a clipboard. They went home and mommy took the clip off and it turned into a breadboard cutter, things like that. Or granddad got a hold of the clipboard and put the tail fin of the crappie fish in the clip and turned it into a fillet situation for the fish, one or the other. But anyway, one of the biggest things that I have with my basic wood turning students is keep it simple. I tell them, think of the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Things like that. But I'm going, you don't need some complicated form at all. 1, it makes it more difficult to sand. 2, you're working on your basic skills. So keep it simple. And the nice flowing shape will come out very, very well. And the other thing I'm always after them is the shade will make the lamp. And it all depends on where you want to put it, things like that. And that they vary with heights. I mean, I don't lock them in on a certain height. I don't lock them in on on a certain diameter, of course, whatever the wood lathe has the capacity of, things like that. But we go with lamps. We go with, I'm requiring to turn a little kid's top, bowls, lidded boxes, goblets. I mean, just we've got a variety of things that we're requiring to turn. Last semester alone, I had 42 students in different classes and running 12 lathes at one time. Gets a little dicey sometimes. Gets a little dicey. And then I've got an advanced wood turning class where we get into segmented wood turning, things like that. And when one of the other projects that I had them do, they're required to turn a hollow sphere. It's required. They can't get away from it. It's one of the mandatory projects. They've got to do it. Kearney High School, Kearney, Missouri. Been there now for 23 years. Bundridge. No, that's either good or bad right there. Have you? Well, I appreciate that, you know, but when we get into the advanced wood turning, one of the first projects that I require them to do is do a 4-stack box, which sounds very, very simple, but it's all got to be uniform. It's all got to be the same diameter inside and out. The pieces have got to interchange. A lot more to that than people realize. And especially when you have to do four of them all together, and then they got to make the base, and they got to make the top. We do that. We do the what's it, one-piece scoop. They got to integrate the handle. And then the biggest thing I'm trying to get with my students on advanced, a lot of times when you get into advanced wood turning, you've got to make the adapters. You've got to make the jigs that goes on the lathe out of wood to turn the project. And they don't seem to quite understand that just yet. Well, they're learning. It's the hard way, but they're learning already. And then we get into segmented turning. And see, I'm always looking at them too, because there's many of my students, they don't have good basic math skills. And you say the bad word, geometry. You say that word and their minds just go blank right there. But I've taken them through some basic geometry on the segmented turning, show them how to do things that way, go that way. And I call it hands-on geometry. They learn all this theory, but they don't get a chance to put it to practical use. And this is where I put it to practical use, so they actually see some of the things that they were supposedly supposed to learn. And a lot of them don't totally understand it until they get into this wood turning class that I've gotten to go like, oh, now I understand why this goes this way, things like that. So that's basically what's going on. But it's just a couple of projects that we've got running around here. These are a couple of examples that I keep all the time around there. I've got clocks, I've got bowls, I've got everything over 23 years. I've got all sorts of little bitty knickknacks that we turn. I've got goblets. But anyway, that's the course right there. So I think I'm the only school around here that's got a complete wood turning class. 1 semester of basic wood turning, 1 semester of advanced wood turning. And we go with laminated woods. We can, if I were to wait around and try to find a block of wood, we'd never get anything done. So we always glue up, we laminate, glue up wood. I have walnut, cherry, cedar, maple, poplar, and pine on stock at all times. They allow me to keep all that on hand. And so we get a variety of woods. And one of the first things that I tell my basic wood turners also is, by the end of the semester, if you cannot tell me the species of wood by taste or by smell, we're doing something wrong around here. That's what I've hinted at several times, things like that. But it's, you know, it's just one of those, it's just the way I look at it. A lot of them will actually try to get out of the program. Well, I don't want to taste wood. And you're going to taste it one way or the other. It may be up your nose. It may be in your mouth. Who knows where it's going to be? You're going to go home and mom or dad's going to get mad because you're going to have some wood on the floor at the house from wood turning. It's going to get in spots that you just aren't aware of at the time. Things like that. But anyway, that's the basic programs that we've got over there. And we just keep going. My biggest problem that I've got right now is I'm wondering who's going to take the program over once I retire. We'll see what the school does after that. That's all I got, folks. Thank you. Huh? You
should have been here when we had all the fiddle.
Really? Well, there's a lot of species of wood that I get over there. The kids, they bring in a lot of wood, and I'll be honest about it. There's wood that they bring in, I don't have any idea. And there's woods that they bring in, I'm going, well, I'd like to have that piece of wood, some nice burls and things like that on there. And some of them have a habit of trying to turn Osage orange. Well, and I said, well, where's this been at? Oh, it's been out in Granddad's barn now 50 years. One thing about it, they learn how to sharpen tools with it. This guy, he made instruments, right? And he had I'll get out of your way. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. All right. Hello. All right, Jack, thanks. Thanks everybody for coming tonight and sharing. Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Is that Ann?
Okay. The Fort Worth. Whoa. The Fort Worth Club had a challenge last month to make something using some type of construction material. So I bought a 1x10 maple board and I made this economy bowl. It's 19¼ inches across and 7 inches tall. There's 8 layers. It's the largest bowl I've ever turned. I finished it with walnut oil, and the other night I had some friends over and we used it as a chip bowl, a giant chip bowl. I was real proud of it. It turned out well for as big as it is.
Looks great.
Thank you.
Hold this down here. Maybe I won't get that. Oh, there. It is big. Look how many apples are in there. It isn't full.
And actually that has a bowl
Very nice.
inside of the bowl just to get the apples up high enough.
Right. She's going to get there. Nice job. And job. Thanks everybody for showing up tonight, for participating and sharing, and hope to see everybody again next month. And let's see, who do we got demonstrating next month? It's Phil Sykes. Yeah. So Phil's going to show a picture ornament project. So as usual, Effie wanted me to remind everybody to show up to Open Shop on Saturdays, because the more people, the funner it is, and the more activity we got going on, and the more people we have to show new members how to get around the lathe and enjoy themselves. Thanks everybody. If you have an opportunity and can help put up some chairs, and I know there's some equipment that needs to come out ultimately too. So anybody that has time to stick around, we'd appreciate it. That's our meeting tonight. Thank